one of those guys that I would want on my team because he was good at everything.
Yeah.
He played high school football, tennis, basketball, was just really talented, but was also just one of those great people. Blake was 26 when he passed, so it's like that was in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to Brighton. He got kicked out of Brighton. He wasn't a troubled kid. He just got in with the wrong crowd.
Yeah, dude. So you're a few weeks out of Man Games. Is your body all recovered?
That was the surprising thing. It took me literally like 7 days.
Really?
To want to go and I try to work out or play basketball once a week or something, but I had pretty bad shin splints
Really?
going into the Man Games, and it hit me pretty bad during basketball. And
Oh, no.
Yeah, it took me a while. Our group was all texting, man, 3 days later, still feeling it. So, but finally recovered now.
I wish we would have played you later in basketball so your shin splints hurt more, because you kind of just burned us on that picture. It hurt so bad to put that in the highlight reel, but I had to. And then Brandon on our team, who was guarding you, he was just like, did you have to do that so the whole world could see me just take it right in the face there? But
not pretty, but we'll take it.
So this was your first Man Games. How did you hear about it, and how was it kind of sold to you by your team? Because your team, they had won the spring version of it, so they were coming back. Very, very good team, you included. So what was that pitch like?
Yeah. Weston, Farnsworth has been, and Weston and McKay have both been friends of mine. We grew up competing against each other in basketball. We went to rival high schools, Jordan and Alta.
Yeah.
And, Weston probably texted me maybe a month prior, 3 weeks prior, and was like, hey, there's this thing. And just didn't tell me about costs or anything, just like, hey, does this sound fun? I was like, that sounds like the best weekend ever. So I ate it up right away. And I had never met Maddie.
Mm-hmm.
And so I met him the day prior because we played in a golf tournament, the four of us,
Nice.
To get some practice because we needed it. And just told me all the events, and oh man, it's like a guy's dream, right?
Yeah.
And Weston's family has a little place to stay up there, so it was perfect. So we could just make it a weekend out of it.
That's awesome. What sports were you most looking forward to, and which ones were you kind of like, I'm not so sure about that one?
Yeah. Basketball, I knew that Jordy was going to play in it just from seeing the list, Jordy Brown.
Are you the same age?
No, he's, 4 years older than me, I think.
Okay.
But I grew up worshiping the Browns. He has an older brother that was really great.
That's funny because the old, one step, I don't know how their whole family situation is, but they had a brother go to Jordan. And so Jackson Brown, his name, his jersey's retired at Jordan.
Wait,
so at Jordan, we always looked at Jackson Brown went here. And then you go out to now and it's Taylor and Jordy, right?
Yeah. I think their cousin, I grew up playing basketball with their cousin Parker Brown, who lives pretty close to you over here, who went to Bingham in West Jordan. So the Brown family, wow, just a bunch of
stars. Yeah, no kidding.
All just 6'3" and can hoop. All right. So I knew when Jordy was playing, I was like, all right. And I know, Allie knows Instagram, Fit Burke.
Yeah, Justin.
Yeah,
Burke.
Justin. Yeah. So I'd played in some of those T Sports leagues or whatever, and I was like, all right, basketball is going to be the real deal. And I play pickleball all the time, and so excited about that. But I think that was the most surprising thing about Man Games is how much I enjoyed the ones that I was unsure about, like volleyball or spike ball. And the home run derby, I didn't swung a bat in years. So, that was really fun.
That's awesome. That's super fun. Yeah, basketball, same thing. And I don't know if you guys had conversations going into it, but we were like, all right, which teams do we have to worry about in which sports? So, because I knew everybody except Jordy's team. I didn't know anybody on their team, but I knew somebody from all the other teams. And so I was like, all right, I got a plan for this. I knew basketball was going to be a bloodbath because there were a lot of really good basketball teams. Yeah. We were lucky we got out. You guys beat us, but outside of that, we were able to win all the rest. And then everybody else just beat each other up. So I think everybody after that went 4-3 or something.
Yeah, lots of
just some winning, some losing. It was fun.
Yeah, man.
That was wild. So I think, especially with your team too, because I knew all three of them. I didn't know you coming in, but I think that you brought an element to your team that I don't know how to describe it other than power. Like you bring this like force with you with golf because we had Brandon on our team who knocks the crap out of the golf ball, and then you were hitting it over us, and then we would go like in volleyball, basketball, any of these sports, you brought this element of power to it. So I think that that really complemented your team well.
Yeah.
Did you guys have conversations going into it? Was there any strategy? Had you practiced beforehand? What did that look like?
Totally.
Yeah.
We like met Wednesday and hit some. We went and played the softball fields.
Nice.
The weird, yeah, the lunch hour. Like,
Yeah.
hey, let's meet. Let's go hit some balls. I golf in. We have this weird league with all of our friends that I golf with Weston and McKay
Hmm.
quite often. So we kind of knew what we had there. But yeah, there was a bunch of strategy that they talked about. I didn't really know about kind of like coming into it. They knew exactly what they were going to do in spike ball,
Yeah.
what we need to do in pickleball, who to watch out for in every sport. Like, I think participating in it really gives you a little leg up because it really felt like a community that you were like kind of diving into. I'm sure Jordy and their team feels the same because we didn't know a lot of people, but yeah, really interesting dynamic. And I think next time, because I will definitely be participating again.
Perfect.
More strategy
Yeah.
to come for sure.
Which sporting event do you feel like you're most competitive in? Like if you were to get thrown into like this, but a specific tournament with one sport, what is your most confident sport that you have?
Oh man,
All of them?
I feel like there's three that I like play regularly.
Yeah.
Just like pickleball, I play golf a lot, and I play basketball in the winter. That was
Yeah.
like the first time playing basketball all year, but I'd be more confident like heading into like a spring games, right, where you've played basketball for
Yeah.
the last few months. But probably those three.
Nice. Which
Yeah.
which was basketball your favorite event there? What was your favorite?
That was my least favorite event. Holy cow. Right off the bat, we played the Twins. I'm sorry. I don't know I can't remember their last names, but
Van
one of,
Rankin twins.
yeah, one of them lives next to my cousin, funny enough,
Oh,
like
cool.
right next door. And man, I got heated like right away. And they threw it right back in my face. So we got like in a heated confrontation, and it like threw off of our mojo on our
Yeah.
team because we came into that day leading, right?
Yeah.
And we were like,
Yeah.
we gotta win basketball. And we lost a close game to them off of, it was a winnable game. Not that
Yeah.
they're incredible athletes and they could beat anyone
Yeah.
because they're physical and can do a lot of awesome things. But I was so upset. And so it took me a few games to kind of like, okay, we got to go get some points
Yeah.
and kind of like stay competitive here because we knew you guys weren't losing. And then we beat you on some bank shot that was totally lucky.
I would never formally say it was lucky, but that hurt.
Let me say it.
That
Yeah, it
hurts
was
so
lucky.
bad.
I'm not trying to bank that shot any day of the week.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basketball is actually the probably like most frustrating because it's physical. There were some big dudes there.
Yeah.
I mean, guys like Carson and Kyle that like I was the tallest person on our team, or like your team was just full of big guys, so a little physical. And I was I don't know if I was ready for it. I'd
Yeah.
say I'm like more of a finesse basketball player. I don't
Yeah.
know, or at least I try to be.
Well, you're a great shooter, and basketball always gives me a little bit of nerves simply because it's the one in this setup of the sports that we did, it's the one that has the most potential for controversy and fouls and everything. And in each of the games, as I was going around and seeing there, it seems like there were flare-ups that would happen, and then they'd kind of simmer down. And by the end of it, everyone was kind of hugging each other, and it was fine.
Yeah.
But that's the one, because it is call your own fouls. It can get physical.
Yeah.
So that one kind of makes me a little bit nervous. So if that wasn't your favorite event, which one was your favorite event?
Probably the one that I least expected to like, which was volleyball.
Yeah.
And I think because that was probably the most competitive because there was only one team, right? That
Yeah.
really probably played volleyball actively, where
Yeah.
the rest of us were kind of figuring it out and
Yeah.
like strategy as you go. And it's not really something that you can just go ask for other people like, hey, let's go play volleyball on Wednesday. So that was really fun. And it's towards the end, so you're all warmed up, you're just having a good time.
Yeah.
And yeah, everyone kind of knew each other at that point. Lots of compliments back and forth, but still really close scoring games, and
Yeah.
I loved it. It was a really fun sport.
It seemed like as I watched volleyball too, I had hurt my toe, so I was just kind of like, I'll pass to you guys, and I'm like not going to do anything. It's pretty nasty too. I won't
Are you
show
serious?
everybody, but it's like purple still, and it's just like, yeah. So, but
Dang.
volleyball was fun because I would kind of like watch and everything else, and it seemed like a lot of teams got a lot better at volleyball as it went on. The first game, everyone's kind of figuring it out, kind of as you said, the strategy and what are we doing. And then by the time we got into it, the teams that weren't like dying from being just sore and tired, the ones that were trying, it looked like everybody got a little bit better at volleyball as it went on, as with all the
Agreed.
sports, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
What sports would you want in a future Man Games?
Wow. So while we were waiting, while people were just smashing home runs over our heads, especially your team, you're just no. Every time a good one was hit, it just broke our heart a little bit more. But we like went and got a football, and I think like I don't know, one of like there's these YouTube videos. I don't know if you watch Destroying. That's his channel. And he just has one-on-ones, and like he'll throw money to some high school kids, and it gets really heated. But it's really competitive. So just like having a quarterback and a receiver and a cornerback a D-back lining up against each other would be pretty interesting. Would definitely be the most controversial.
Yeah.
Because there's a bunch of, grabbing, and it's more physical, but that would be one that would be really interesting.
Yeah, we had a 2-on-2 Man Games a few years ago. So it was just you and a partner. And we did that version, but you kind of had a rusher so they could count to whatever it was, 7 or 10 or whatever it was, and then rush. And then we did a punt, pass, and kick that was actually pretty fun. So like each person got 3 punts, and then the furthest one, you would go from there, and then you'd throw it as far as you could 3 times, and then you'd go from wherever that ball ended. And then we had like a little tee for a kick, and then you'd kick that as far as you could. And so that was one version of doing punt, pass, and kick that was
Wow.
kind of fun.
Where did you think of that? That is creative.
As a kid, I did a punt, pass, and kick contest, and they'd have like a line going down a football field. And so your punt, it was like as close to the line as you could get. You get docked points if you went to the side. Then you pass, and they had field goal posts that you try to kick through. So kind of adapting that, but just extending it to where it's just like, okay, you start. So as we'd kick this, everybody would get cones. And so you'd go and set your cone where it is. And then if we were in front or behind someone, the people furthest back would go first. And so then you're just kind of looking at them, and they know, okay, I have to get at least to them and more to catch up. And so that one was a fun event to try.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. So we'll try to mix in some stuff all the way through.
You did tennis, but I'm sure that's just not as all-encompassing as far as talent goes. Like, there's going to be some really bad tennis players, and they're really good. So
yeah, that one event went pretty well, I thought. But yeah, we had 2 former college tennis players come to that. I actively played tennis, and then another guy on our team actively played tennis. But a lot of the teams that didn't have that, they were all pretty close, and they had a good time. But yeah, for sure, it's tough finding sports where everybody's relatively equal. But that's kind of the fun of it too. I mean, like Carson, you go into volleyball and he just hammers everybody, but it's fun for me to watch and to be a part of. Then it's like, all right, let's go play pickleball, and I play a lot more pickleball than he does, so he can kind of come into my world and experience that. So
that's what's fun about Man Games.
Yeah. So how would you prepare for it differently now that you've been to it?
Like going in and setting up a team, like thinking, all right, I need someone. You can't just go and get the best basketball player you know, right?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't help. So thinking of someone who's good and could compete at 4 different sports, 4 different events, and kind of like putting a team together that way. Unless, Weston and McKay and Maddie want me on their team again, but it'd be fun to add another team. So I've thought about it consciously. I'm like, all right, who would I bring to this event? Like, I have friends that are really good at golf, but are they just good at golf?
Yeah.
You know, like what would they add? So I think that's the biggest strategy is like, I need to have someone who's good at 4 or 5 things if possible. And all right, if they're not great at something else, that was great how there was like B League, so they wouldn't just get destroyed, but because I would have gotten destroyed in spike ball A League. So
yeah, your team I think swept spike ball on both pools.
And Weston, he played with me on the B team, but he was just as good as anyone out there. So that was nice to have. I guess they used to play it at work all the time, and so there's just those little things you don't think about. Bowling. Man, bowling would be fun to go back to an event. I don't know if you guys have done that, but I just thought of that. That would be really fun.
We did bowling as an event. It was fall of 2021, I think, and it was a fun event.
Yeah.
The bowling place, I won't name their name. They weren't super great to work with.
Okay.
So that's why we haven't done it since. It's in that general area. So,
Okay.
but coming up on the spring qualifiers, bowling's going to be a part of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Very
Bowling's a
cool.
fun one.
But yeah, I think that's the strategy is just thinking of those that might be good at a few different things. And yeah, like you got to put guys out there that are, I mean, you got to have some height in some things too. So we just weren't very tall, but man, the three of those guys are really fast too. So they
Yeah.
made up for it in other ways, and they were awesome.
That's what I mean, like that power. I know you're a finesse player as well, but the power element that you brought to that team, because they're so talented, everyone on your team, but they're smaller, and so I think that you really brought an advantage for them there. Because you're right, I tell our team at least, like, we've got to finish top 3 in everything, and we've got to win a couple of events. And so if you lay an egg in something because you have somebody who's never played something before, it gets really hard to win man games. And so
Yeah.
they're like, you guys won golf, you guys won spike ball. You guys won Pool B in pickleball, I think. So you guys won a bunch of events, and then it seems like home run derby. I can't remember where you placed there, but that's kind of where we started to
Yeah.
separate. And then
And
poker.
then poker. Oh, you hate to see it. That's, yeah. So you got to talk about everything.
Yeah.
Like we talked about the home run derby, but we just didn't have the power to
Yeah.
like hit the fence and get over the fence. I don't think we hit one home run.
Yeah.
We hit a lot at the fence. We were consistent, but yeah. And then poker, we didn't talk about any strategy, and that just waxed us. I think you gained like another 10 points there.
Yeah.
That makes a difference. So
Yeah, it was at that point, I think I was the only one on my team still playing at the tables. And Donnie had come over to me and I was like, where did everybody finish? And on all of the tables except one, we'd finished ahead of you guys. And then I was ahead of the person on your table. And so I was like, oh, sweet. Like I can go more aggressive. It was like midnight or whatever it was at the time. So I was like, okay, I'm good to like, I don't have to win this table. And
that's such a funny event because yeah, there was people coming in there. I think Brad, like he was on my table. Yeah, one of them was just like, it's midnight, like, let's go, all in, and you're like, no, like, it hurts with you're tired, you just want to go home and sleep. Some of them were driving back to the valley, so tough event, but you still got to be strategic.
Yeah. So did it live up to your expectations? I know that like going into it, it sounded cool and everything. Did it live up to those?
Blew them out of the water. So fun.
Yeah.
And I think like the biggest thing was just everyone you were competing with, like all great guys. I'd hang out with like a lot of those guys outside of that.
Yeah.
It just seemed like awesome, great human beings involved in there, but also insanely athletic and competitive. And it was just everything. But yeah, the people made the event up. And I think that's what made it really, really fun. But yes, I mean, just everything that you had done as well as an organization it was awesome.
Yeah,
So
we have really cool volunteers, and I mentioned him on the Brad episode as well, but the volunteers kind of make that happen, right? That's a lot of stuff to do in a short amount of time. So if we were waiting on things or if we were like trying to figure stuff out as we went, but to know that we can go from one event to the other and food and everything else, it just makes it. So those volunteers
they killed it.
I can't say enough about how awesome they are. So they're fantastic.
Awesome.
So did you know, I think you alluded to this, you didn't know anybody else there except for your team. Is that right?
And just Jordy.
And Jordy. Yeah.
And I'd met Justin a few times, but I ended up making connections with a few other people. It's a small world out here. So,
yeah, it's awesome. And we made this connection on just before Man Games. So I grew up playing basketball against your brother.
Yeah.
And so your last name is unique. And so I was like, he's got to be related somehow. And so it ended up being your brother. Which is crazy. And actually, Brad knew your brother as well. So I was talking to him. I was like, hey, Chase is going to come on here, Chase Debenham. He's like, wait a minute. Is he related to Blake? And I was like,
no way.
Yeah. And so I think, because were you guys in the Brighton boundaries and then you moved to Alta?
Yeah. So like 66, right by the Old Mill, if you know where that's at.
Yeah.
Or Old Mill Golf Course. We lived in that area for a long time. And then moved to Sandy when I was 10 or 11.
So I think Brad grew up there too, and then he ended up going to Brighton, but he knew your brother for sure. And I talk about this, and we can get into this as deep or not as deep as you want, but I tell everybody that the third pillar of Man Games is you're going to meet some really cool people. And I think that that's probably the most important part of Man Games for me is the people that I meet,
Yeah.
because there are so many amazing stories. And so hearing your story specifically with your brother, again, I just knew him from a basketball perspective as we're little kids and whatever it was, like 7th grade or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But would you be willing to share his story?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take us
It's
through
what
that.
makes me me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blake was he was an awesome human. Even as a kid, really good athlete. He would totally do something like this, and he's one of those guys that I would want on my team because he was good at everything.
Yeah.
He played high school football, tennis, basketball. Was just really talented, but was also just one of those great people. Yeah, Blake was 26 when he passed, so it's like that was in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he went to Brighton. He got kicked out of Brighton. He wasn't a troubled kid. He just got in with the wrong crowd. And he was a drug addict,
Mm-hmm.
and he was clean for about 3 years and doing some really amazing things, making great strides at work, finishing up his degree, and also helping a lot of people that we didn't really know about. I would go with Blake to these meetings, which is held by an organization, Narcotics Anonymous, or NA meetings, for
Mm-hmm.
those that are familiar. And I mean, I remember as a 16-year-old in high school, spending my Friday nights with Blake at these meetings where, it's just, if you've been to an AA meeting or something like that with someone, it's very similar, sit in circles and, you talk about what you're going through. And Blake helped out a lot of people in his NA meetings and circles there during the 3 years that he was clean, and started helping out some other organizations as well. I was on my mission, an LDS mission in Oklahoma, when I got a call, and my dad told me that he had passed. And it was difficult,
Yeah.
obviously. But we learned a lot about, almost as much about Blake after his death, sadly, as we did, while he was here. We had dozens, if not over 100 people message some of us personally, or leave notes talking about how Blake had really spent his life, the last few years of his life, just serving and helping people that didn't have help elsewhere, which was really cool. And so, yeah, that's just something that we've tried to keep in our family, of just keeping that perspective of who Blake was while he was clean. Drugs, I mean, everyone really, it seems like nowadays everyone has someone that they know and love that is affected by drugs and might be in recovery in some state or form. But that's just something that we try. Like, my dad still goes and plays on the Recovery Renegades, the softball team. And, that's something that we try to, that community, try and help there as he did. And just, trying to have that attitude that he had of service, especially in those last 3 years of his life. But I don't know what else, you want to know.
Well,
there?
with that being, obviously, because it's so close, especially being a brother, and imagine your family, like with that being such a close family member, for those that are a little bit on the outside, maybe they're family friends, maybe they're people like myself that kind of know him outside of that. Both as they're going through that recovery process, or they're trying to stay clean, what can the average person do to help? What can we do to help the individual, but also the family member, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's such a good question, man. And it's so complicated. I mean, there's just this like really fine line of, you don't want to enable them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, there's many times where my parents, and I've had cousins who struggle with the same, and I know their parents struggled, to know how can we help them, and but you don't want to coddle them enough to the point where they're enabled to that they'll just fall back into those habits. Like there has to be this point of self growth where they can begin to do it by themselves. But yeah, for family members, like you can, it's really hard not to because addicts can burn bridges in a lot of different ways,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's needing financial help or you're just emotionally so invested into this person that it feels almost personal to you when, maybe they use a relapse, but it's not. And so just never abandoning them. Really learn unconditional love on accident sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think those are the two things of, yeah, just giving them some unconditional love and being there for them, but also learning. And that's something that you can't be taught, of just learning that line of how to help them grow on their own without enabling them. I mean, I didn't really have to learn that as a younger brother. I just had to love him, and I thought he was the coolest guy in the world, right? He's my
Yeah.
older brother. So the second part was easier for me to just love him unconditionally. Anytime he wanted to spend time with me or needed help from me, I was there.
Yeah. It's so sad to see how it's almost two separate people, right? It's the person who and the core person, and then once they are on something else, it can change things. And you said bridges can be burned because they're acting in a way that isn't their
Yeah.
normal self. And I don't know, I think about that a lot just in my regular life of I see so much pain out there and just so many stories. And I was like, I want to help. And everybody has like, we love you. We care about you. Let me know if you need anything. We're praying for you. And my big search in life is like, what can I do past that? Right. And the golden rule is always treat someone how you want to be treated. But we all want to be treated differently. Like some people don't want to sit and talk about things. Other people do. Some people don't want to try and distract themselves, and other people do. So that's kind of that impetus of like, how can you help someone? And now that you've gone through it, I think that you're a little bit better equipped to be able to do that as you come across that in your daily life.
Yeah. I mean, not just with addicts, this applies to all human beings, right? Like, how can we help people? I think we're really here to learn and grow, and we're going to learn and grow a lot through serving others, probably faster than any other way. We can put all of our will and time into reading all the best books in the world, and but we're going to learn way more by doing and helping others. And so, yeah, like human beings are so different. Like I was just talking about this on LinkedIn. I'm doing, or now it's past. We finished it, but I did this service challenge with my wife where you write 30 different ways to serve you. So write down, for me, it's like, I want a back massage. I want clean my car, all those things. But it's really interesting picking out the things that my wife wrote down. And then you go and do that day because we don't really know what they want. And so everyone's so different. Like, I think a lot of men can relate, like our wives love quality time. And that's a great way that we can love them. But just doing something to serve them and figuring out the way that they want to be served and just doing it. Like we can always ask, right?
Yeah.
But just do it.
I really like what you just brought up with you writing down the 30 ways that somebody else can best serve you. So you were part of, you saw the whole Brandon thing that we did with the golf clubs.
Yeah.
Brandon, I think it's so easy for, at least in my life, it's so much easier for me to say like, yeah, I will go help you, right? Hey, you need help? Great. I'm there. You need something moved. You need heavy objects moved around, whatever. It's a lot harder for me to reach out and say, hey, will you come help me? I think whether that's pride, whether that's just the culture we've been able to like go serve others. And so it's kind of, you forget about yourself in that aspect. And it's really hard for me to open up and let people serve me in that way. So I really like what you said about putting a list together of here's what would help me. And then how do we get that list to our friends, right? Because again, Brandon's the first one to rip his shirt off of his back, give it to you, but he would never have asked for any help, no matter how dark and disturbing things got for him. So great advice there. Really like that.
Yeah, that's tough way harder to ask than to do it, right?
Did it help with your relationship with your wife? Was it what were the results of this?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Man, right now my wife and I are just on a like solid high. We've been married for 3.5 years.
Nice.
But it's because of things like this and just ways of stretching ourselves to help each other more. But yeah, the results were pretty awesome. Like every day, you felt like, or at least I felt like, my wife cared about me because she would spend whatever amount of time thinking about me and helping me in some way. Um, and a lot of days she didn't come back and say, "Oh, I did your thing. I did the thing you wrote
Yeah.
down." It just happened, and then that it was a great feeling. And I know it was reciprocated. We had obviously had conversations on how that went. But yeah, results were awesome. I
Yeah.
highly, highly recommend doing something like that.
That's super cool. I need to steal that. So I took my wife out on a date last night, and we were actually talking about this because with man games, girl games, everything, my regular job and everything else, I was just like, look, like I'm sorry, I haven't been working on us as much as I should,
Yeah.
and I want to change that. And a big part of that is just being present, right? It's turning the phone off, it's turning the computer off, it's turning the TV off, whatever it is. Just being able to have that time there. So I'm stealing that. I'm going to
Awesome.
steal it. I'm going to try and use it. How have you been able to ever see something like that within friends? I know that the wife is a different relationship, but how do you maintain friendships? Is that something that you work on outside of this? Because man games is kind of a part of that. I hope you feel that you're now in our
Yeah.
man games
It's a
family of
brotherhood.
like we're willing to help whenever we can. So
Yeah.
and I really like to cultivate that. But what about from a friendship opening up as a man to other men?
Yeah.
What's the best way to do that?
Yeah. I'm a pretty vulnerable dude, I think. That's just one of the things that I don't know has been instilled in me by my dad.
Yeah.
He's really vulnerable too. Um, yes, I think like I used to have a lot of friendships. Um, and man, I don't want to get out. This could be a big tangent. Okay. So hang
Yeah,
with
well,
me.
let's go. We got no.
Um, Last year, just kind of organically, my wife and I deleted social media. We felt like we had a really big circle, but it's really interesting to see what happens after that. And we had done it before. I'd probably been off social media 3 or so months at a time, just because unhealthy amount spent on Instagram. And there was a period that we had just bought our first house, and it's beautiful, brand new home. Um, Everything that we could want. And I remember like scrolling on Instagram one day and I saw someone that was, you know, my age, similar job, way doper house. And I
Mhm.
was like all of a sudden feeling all of this terrible feelings about myself, about them. And I was like, okay, that was like my first realization that, okay, I probably have like an unhealthy relationship with social media. So deleted it, whatever. And then, yeah, organically last year or at the beginning of this year, my wife and I just deleted it. We spend time, I spend time on LinkedIn and sometimes on TikTok, which is
Yeah.
kind of funny enough. But we don't like, I don't know, it's different
Yeah.
than Instagram or whatnot. And yeah, with friends, I saw that because I wasn't seeing their stories or their posts, I didn't see their Hawaii trip. So I'm asking them in
Yeah.
person about their Hawaii trip. And I'm not, right, like, what does this say if I just have this open, right here while we're talking and I'm getting notifications and I'm checking on that. So for me, it was like I was just able to be more present and ask them when I was with my friends, like, oh, like, I actually didn't know you went to Hawaii. Tell me
Yeah.
about it. Like, that's awesome. And it's way easier for me to be happy for them for all of their wins, and be there for them and have a real conversation when, talk about the L's they're going through. We're all going through some L's right
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
And so that was just something that's happened this past year that, man, our relationships maybe have become a little bit fewer, but the relationships I do have become way deeper, better relationships. So
Yeah, I like that a lot. I always feel a little bit insecure about when I do meet up with friends I haven't seen in a long time, and I do ask like, "Hey, so tell me about this." Oh, that was on Facebook. That was on Instagram. That was
yeah,
sorry, man, I didn't see it. But so
yeah,
tell me about it.
yeah,
And I had this theory back when I was dating my wife. Like, I had a huge crush on her all through high school, but I never had the guts to talk to her. And so it was always just
Nice.
like, and everybody knew about it. I'm pretty sure she says like, oh, I knew you liked me, but it was like huge crush on her. So as I was dating, I was like, I've got to impress her and I've got to be different.
Mm.
I've got to do things differently. And I'm not sure exactly what that means. But I remember like text messaging, really close friend of mine when he was dating a girl, they would be texting all day, like during school, all day, all of this stuff. And then we'd get together and hang out and they had nothing to say. It was just like this, okay, well, it's like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
So as I was dating my wife, I was like, I'm going to try this. Like I'll text, like if she texts me at the end of a date or something like, thanks, and yeah, no, sleep good, whatever. But then I'm going to actually talk to her and I'm going to actually try to develop the relationship that way.
Yeah.
And I don't know, now we're married. So
It worked.
I hope it worked. I don't know if that's exactly what it was, but just furthering those relationships. Yeah, social media is kind of a trap at times where I do like being able to see the wins that are happening in people's lives.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I like hearing the story of it too, right?
Yeah.
Like sitting in front of him and
Yeah.
talking about it.
Both pros and cons. If you're better than me and can have a natural, healthy relationship with social media, great. So be it. I can't, right?
Yeah.
So, or at least I don't want to right now. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's just what's been great for me lately.
Well, acknowledging that's a big step.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what do you do for work? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So I am in tech sales. I work for a startup, Nectar, in Orem, and we're an employee recognition software, trying to create a new category because there's a lot of employee recognition softwares, especially here in Utah, Motivosity, Wordco, if you've heard of those. Really just a focus on culture enablement. So really focusing on the tools that help build culture and create a culture that makes it impossible to leave
Yeah.
work. So
How has that changed pre, during, and post COVID? I mean, I feel like I know my relationship with employers changed a lot through all
Yeah.
of that. Is Nectar, when did it start and how has COVID kind of helped?
yeah. So Nectar's been around. They lived as a perks and discounts software previous to that was like their legacy product. Previous to this product being a recognition software, but COVID created the pivot. They weren't having a lot of success. They were really, really small, maybe 4 or 5 at that time, pre-COVID. And then as they were selling to clients were like, hey, that's great. COVID's here. We need to help remote work and we need to make it easier to recognize those. And do you have something like this, kind of spelling out this software? And they're like, no, but we'll go make it.
Yeah.
So they made it. And yeah, recently it's been awarded, the number 1 in its category from a lot of those third parties that do that, like G2 or,
Yeah.
Capterra, cool things like that. So they're doing really well, creating a really great product that makes a difference, which I love. Obviously.
Who do you talk to? Like who in the company is the one that would actually start that conversation with you and make that decision and then implement the software that you have?
Mostly HR leaders. So occasionally it will come from just separate team managers. Like a sales team is like, hey, we need a better way to do spiffs, or we need a better way to recognize those that hit goals. So they'll come in as a team manager, but mostly, for an entire employee base, for an entire org, they'll come in and it'll be an HR leader. And, if it's big enough, then you're going to want to present it to a board because it's going to affect every employee every single day. It has a big impact and it gets used a lot. So, but yeah, HR or people ops, there's all these new titles coming up because of this problem, right? Like
Yeah.
5 years ago, what if you saw like a people and culture or an employee experience coordinator? Like these are titles that are being created because of the problem. And so those are the ones that we're talking to, obviously.
That's super cool. Is there a size of company that it seems to make more sense for, or at least from a pricing standpoint, it starts to be a little bit more realistic?
Yeah. So we're definitely on like the lower end of pricing. We're still very startup-y. We're scaling, like we're getting bigger, like we're hitting our biggest client every single month, it seems like. And we have some deals on the horizon that we didn't even think were possible, that, okay, we're in the top 2 discussion or, something like that may close here soon. We're we're the only ones that have multiple sports teams. As far as like, we partner with Major League Baseball and, hopefully by the time this comes out, the Golden State Warriors and things like that, which is really cool. But the size of company, yeah, like our TAM, our target market is so big because anyone that has employees can use this, right? And because our product doesn't really have bugs or any break it, things that break, the larger it gets, that's okay. Like we service our average customers, going to be somewhere between 2 to 300, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
But, we have companies in the thousands and companies in the dozens. So
Yeah,
kind of anywhere.
that's super cool. And so what is it that the pitch to the company that you're going to hopefully work with? Yeah, we want to acknowledge your employees, but what is the back end kind of value for that? You mentioned like creating a culture they don't want to leave. How do you see that in action?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, last year or over the last 12 months, we saw like the great resignation, right? Now we got quiet quitting and all these things that you might hear about. And so there's been kind of a lack of engagement and a big increase in turnover. And so really where the ROI here is, we did a client survey last year and our clients saw, 94% of them said that, it helped increase employee engagement. And Deloitte did a study over the past few years that showed that if you recognize your employees each quarter, you can decrease turnover by an average of 31%, which is pretty crazy. And so those are really some great sources of data that, wow, like this really helps decrease turnover and increase engagement. Like, man, if employees are going to stay longer and be more engaged, you're going to make a lot more money. So
That's
hopefully
interesting.
that
Is there like on your end, or at least from the employer's side, analytics to see, okay, it looks like these people are using it. They're actually being more engaged. They're sending kudos or however it is to other people, or they're receiving kudos. Are you able to track kind of the engagement within this program itself?
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like, there's I think like 38 of these different it's a really saturated space. Different softwares like us that do similar things to what we do, and so we'll say like we're 90% similar. Everyone's kind of copying each other, and but 10% different. And I think that's one of the things that makes us 10% different. Like, we try to make it as easy and as accessible to go and recognize someone for doing great work. We have like an average of 91.5% of our users come in every single month, and like 99% of them each year. So it gets used a lot, and that is quite a bit higher than our competitors there. And so that's a big reason that we'll come and win deals is, we have a bunch of analytics to show you like, hey, here's all of the activity that's happening here. You can export that, sort that, in whatever way you'd like there. You can also dive way deeper and see who hasn't been recognized this quarter. How are our managers doing? We do like a really big focus so that the recognition happens on core values, so that, your employees are also engaged with and have the same understanding of the core values that, your company operates by. And so with those embedded into each piece of recognition, you can see what focus and which core values are being shouted out the most, which is making quite a bit of a difference as well.
That's cool. What is the coaching on, okay, John or Jane is not getting recognition? Is that something where managers recognize them more, or is that something where their performance may be lacking? It gives them a coaching opportunity there. What does that look like?
I think both scenarios, right? Like, being able to pull that report and see, okay, John hasn't been recognized. It's going to also show, because we can pull in a report from whatever payroll or HRIS system you're using to show who they report to, where they're located. And so you really have a clear understanding of who to have that conversation with. Like, John is located here. Here's his manager. Here's the department he's in. Let's go find out, like, it's been a couple of quarters since John has been recognized. Is it performance, or is it because of lack on our end? Maybe his manager doesn't even know of this resource that he has available. So having that manager report too, is like being able to see, okay, John's manager has sent out like 30 other shout outs. Like, he's pretty active on here, but that might offer a better conversation there.
That's cool. What ways are there to recognize people? Is it just a hey thumbs up? Is it a certificate? Is it
Oh,
money? Like what
yeah.
are those opportunities?
Yeah, so it's like a points-based system. You'll give allowances to everyone in the organization, to it's labeled as points to give to others.
Hmm.
So, you know, after this podcast, if you put this on, maybe you put it on LinkedIn, and I want to say, hey, Eric, thanks. That podcast was great. Whatever got me a lead or something, I can go in, tag you, give you some points, and then, based on whatever core value. And so then those points can be used for rewards that you actually want, and it's not some Starbucks gift card that we give you that you may or may not use, but it's actually things that you want, which is pretty cool.
That's cool. I feel like it's almost like we go to round one, the arcades all the time, and so they
Nice.
get like their tickets or points or whatever, and
Yeah.
they kind of go choose what they want. It feels
Yeah,
a little bit more like that rather than like
Yeah.
you're forced the big teddy bear when they don't want a teddy bear.
exactly. Yeah, you're not at the carnival and the first one to win that
Yeah.
game, and you get something you don't want. Like, we integrate with Amazon, so
Mhm.
you have a catalog to really get anything you want, right? Like,
Yeah.
I just used my points to get my newest golf wedges. Like,
Oh, nice.
I love it, so I'm pumped.
We don't want you getting any better at golf. You need to slow it down on the golf. Like,
Okay.
that was too good. Oh, that's sweet. So let's talk startup culture a little bit. So when did you start there at Nectar?
April.
Oh,
So
nice.
I got laid off in March. I worked for a really cool company, actually. Had a great product. We had they had raised some money. We kind of grew at a bad time, and then we were like an SMS texting company. So it was conversational AI through SMS, and Twilio. I don't know if you're familiar with Twilio, but they're a big provider there, and they like banned half of our campaigns overnight. And
Wow.
so, yeah, we lost half of our revenue. And it's not like they gave us a big heads up, like, hey,
Yeah.
you're playing around here. So, yeah, overnight, half our revenue went. I lasted a few rounds of layoffs, but eventually they have laid off the entire sales team. And so they're no longer around. And I found Nectar just through LinkedIn. CEO reached out to me and was super impressed. And but yeah, I've been there since April after
Nice.
that layoff.
How many employees are there at this point?
I was 17, now 31,
Wow.
I think, 30 or 31. Yeah.
So I've been in a few startups as well, and it seems like you come in there and it's like, yeah, sure, your role is sales or account executive or whatever, but you're kind of wearing a ton of hats all at once.
Yeah.
Is that a similar experience, or they've got it all pretty under control, or is it kind of hectic in a good way?
Yeah. This is, previous to this, I worked at, in previous to Actify, I worked at a company called Route. Now they're big, right? 600 plus, but I think I was like 90 or whatever there.
Is that the shipping?
Shipping protection
Yeah.
and shipping app, tracking app. Super cool. Great team. I have nothing bad to say about them. It was awesome. But yeah, it was a little bit more hectic there, I would say. Like, even if you closed the client, if you had any type of troubles, like, you were taking care of them. You were wearing a couple of different hats, and there was still a lot of things to figure out there. Whereas the market that we're in with Nectar, as I said before, it's saturated. And with that means there's a lot of other companies doing similar things, which you can kind of replicate those processes. And this team has done a really good job of making sure that processes have been created and are pretty sustainable for the next person filling the seat. So it's honestly one of the things I've been impressed with the most. But yeah, I mean, when you're hired there, like, there's no sales playbook. It's like, all right, go figure it out.
Yeah.
But as far as, how the customer and client is taken care of, completely, white glove and a really great experience. Doesn't feel like a startup experience for the client.
Yeah.
So
That's super cool. I know, like in my world, our sales cycle, as an example, right? So we have somebody that we're very much on an individual level. We aren't really on like a business level, but our sales cycle is a lot shorter, right? It's, hey, I need this right now. I'm in the Medicare world, so it's insurance for seniors. Hey, I'm turning 65. I need this now. Great, let's do this, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm 3 months out. Great, on your birthday or whatever it is. What does that sales cycle look like? Is it longer? Is it a long process of you've met someone? All right, let's have an RFP. And then after that, you go in to make a decision. What does that look like?
exactly. Yeah, I think our average cycle we have like a minimum of 40-ish people. We'll take less than that, but you got to pay as if you were a 40 user program. So anything over our minimum, I think, is like an average of 80 or 90 days, something really close, somewhere in there, or at least it was last quarter. So yeah, it's longer tailed because HR people, some of them are given a lot of buying power, but a lot I would say are not. Because if you have someone in that role, they're probably part of the C-suite that's going to meet on these types of things maybe once a quarter, and maybe make some buying decisions there. But yeah, a lot of it's going to happen in Q4 because that's when budgets take place for most companies. Most of their fiscal year will run, Jan 1 to Jan 1. And so they're making decisions around that right now. So right now it's like crazy busy.
Yeah.
They do like over half their revenue from, November to February because those decisions are made there. But a little bit longer than, hey, I need this right now. Let's do it. It happens every once in a while, but those are few and far between.
What does that prospecting look like? Is that something where you're on LinkedIn connecting with HR leaders, or is it calls or emails?
Yeah.
Like what does that prospecting look like?
This is what drew me to Nectar. So initially, and we're still at this point, we're 100% inbound.
Really?
We have, now there's 10 of us, and we just hired two awesome guys to figure out outbound, who have kind of replicated that at some other places before. And so we're just kind of figuring out outbound and reaching out and prospecting. But to this point, our marketing has been so awesome. And there is that demand out there. So it's just kind of playing amongst demand capture to get clients to just book right on our calendar. So right now I wake up, see what's on my calendar. It's like a dream.
That's awesome.
Account executive position for that reason. But eventually we're all going to be doing some type of split of outbound and inbound. But right now it's been cushy.
That's awesome. I'm a marketer by trade, I guess, but marketing has so many different aspects of it. And so there are lead gen marketers. They generate leads. And then there are demand gen marketers where they're generating the demand to reach out to you, right? And I've never been a good lead gen marketer. Everything I've done is around demand gen because there's just something about like cold outreach for me of just like, hey, I'm going to barge into your world here and try to force something down your throat. Just isn't quite my style.
Yeah.
But so that's cool. It's fun to hear the different, ways of doing things.
Yeah. Our head of marketing, I brought your name up just mentioning what I was doing with Man Games, and he knew who you were. So, yeah, that's cool. No, it sounds like you have like similar philosophies there. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
very nice. Yeah, that's been good.
Good. It was good.
Good. Yeah. That's awesome, man. What else about Nectar do we need to know? What haven't we covered on Nectar? What's the name? What's the meaning behind the name? Is there a story?
Yeah, nectar's like the component of honey that makes it sweet, right?
Yeah.
Culture's the component of a company that makes it sweet, or so we believe. And that can grow and develop through frequent, meaningful recognition. So that's the game.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Well, awesome. Anything we need to know about Nectar before I ask you like 3 very selfish questions?
If you're interested, like we got really a ton of applicants last time we like had a sales position. Like we thought, hey, maybe we'll get like 4 or 5 people that we know interested. Man, we had 100+ people reach out.
Wow.
But I didn't know. It was really cool. So if you're interested, reach out. I know that there's a lot of people, like tech world right now is going through kind of an interesting time as far as layoffs. And so, we're not hiring right now, but we will be in the future and love to at least connect with people. So
nice. And if someone is part of a business and they want to kind of get that going, I mean, we can throw your email address on the video. That's super easy. We'll just throw that out there. Yeah. Get a hold of Chase. It'll be great.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah. So, all right. You ready for 3 selfish questions?
Yeah.
If you listen to the Brad, you know what's coming. But, okay. So the first one is, who was not at Man Games this time that has to be at the next one?
Yeah. I thought about this. That was part of me thinking of the team, right? this guy that I work with, his name's Jake Fotu, and man, he's just the best golfer I know. He's like a 4.0 pickleball player, and he's just one of those guys good at everything. He's got to be there. He's Tony Finau's cousin,
Oh, nice.
legit cousin. I've seen the text; it's real. And
How do you get Tony on that team?
yeah, that Finau blood though, it just
Yeah.
runs every Finau that is out there golfing. You'll just hear it, some tea time. One of those Finaus, man, they're just incredible.
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome.
but yeah, maybe that's who we need to recruit. Okay, Jake. Jake, if you're listening to this,
Jake?
text Tony.
Tony needs to come to this.
Yeah, let's get him out here.
So Tony's my age, and I didn't know it at the time, but I played against him in basketball. So I'm pretty sure I have this right. He went to West, and then we played them in a tournament. And so not knowing, right, who he was or whatever, and this was when we were younger. So as he got older, he ended up focusing a little bit more on golf. But
Oh yeah, just a little bit more.
but he's an unbelievable basketball
That's what
player.
I've heard.
Real obviously golf, he's decent. And then I hear he played tennis too. So he's a really good tennis player, which means he's probably good at ping pong and can pick up pickleball pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So really, really good athlete. And I had this dream in mind of man games, and one day in the future, maybe this happens. But I was like, I really would love to get a team where it's professional athletes. And so it's like Steph Curry, Tony Finau, Bryce Harper, I don't know, like just all of the different athletes. And then they play another team that is full of those athletes, but they're in their sport. So it's like, okay, Steph Curry, we're going to have a 3-point contest. Everybody does the 3-point contest. So obviously Steph's going to be great. Who on their team? They're going to get Clay or something. They're going to try to recruit somebody that can keep up. But then how's Tony going to do in a 3-point contest? How's a baseball
I would
player?
pay
gonna be?
money for that.
Wouldn't that be
This
awesome?
needs to be a television show.
Exactly. But and then obviously I think they have some contractual things where you can't hurt them. So that's right. Like a 3-point contest wouldn't be too bad. Like a home run derby. Again, you get Bryce Harper. Let's do a home run derby. Tony, Steph, how would you do?
Yeah.
Golf is a pretty universal thing that everybody could figure out. I don't know. I think, and then a long drive contest or something. And so Tony's crunching things. And then
Bryce is going to swing.
oh,
hard.
yeah, he's going to swing for the fence. So,
Oh, great idea. That's a great idea.
You got to start with your buddy, was it Jake?
Yep.
Fotu?
Yep.
Jake, come to Man Games, and then
Get Tony.
we'll slowly build it from there.
Yeah.
And we can massage this event so it doesn't hurt anybody. So
Right.
that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And then second question is, who was at Man Games that you think you would want to hear more from on this?
So
Not on your team. Somebody, Brad last time was like his whole team.
yeah, the lawyer team, man, Kyle, Carson. I grew up with Carson's wife.
Nice.
So they were they were a team that stuck out to me. They were the nicest guys in the world, and they're lawyers. I love it.
Yeah.
We always have this perception, right? I watch too much Suits, admittedly.
I love, dude, Harvey Specter.
Harvey Specter. Don't I want to be him?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, Carson and Kyle, I just they were great. I'd love to hear their story.
Yeah, and then Carson's dunking on people, and his volleyball skills are.
Yeah, I caught one in the cheek.
Yeah,
one of
a
those.
spike?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that didn't feel pleasant.
Yeah, it was not.
All right, third question. What does it mean to you to be a man?
Yeah, great question. Everyone's got their own definition, right? I think our definitions are made up by the men that we look up to in this world. And for me, a man is someone who loves his family and would do anything for their loved ones in this world, and is able to, man, this is not exclusive to men.
Yeah.
Any of these. That's what's hard about this definition. I thought I had this down.
And I think that's important too, is as you try to define a man, that's not saying that a woman can't also possess those traits.
Yeah.
But as a man, to you, what does that mean?
Yeah. As I said earlier, the men in my life that I look up to are those that are vulnerable and kind of have done a really good job to figure out who they are, or at least those are the ones that I look up to. They really know themselves, and they're super driven and ambitious, but balance that with a love for their families and their loved ones.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I do need to say, so when I put together a Man Games event and I see the list of participants, because of the sports like basketball and everything else, and the inner desire in me to kind of please everybody, I'm always nervous with the people that I don't know, right? Because it's like, I don't know how they're going to react in certain situations. I don't know if they know what to expect and is this going to live up to or not live up to their expectations, and what kind of trouble could or could not happen. And so when I saw that you were coming and joining, and it's like, okay, I don't know him. Let's see how this goes. You were on a great team. And so I was like, their team will help manage that. But I was so happy that you were there. Like, I think that you make everybody at Man Games makes the event unique because of what they bring to the table and the talents and their personality. And so thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of it. I think that you added so much to that event that was just so fun and made it so much more competitive, but also in a kind way, right? Because you can bring great athletes in here that are just going to be jerks to everybody and they're just going to impose their will, whatever.
Right.
And so the fact that you were able to still impose your will, but in a nice way because of your athletic abilities, I appreciate that so much. So
that's the
thank
best
you for doing
compliment
that.
ever.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting.
We got to get you. We got to get you ready for spring. We're doing qualifiers for spring, so it's going to work a little bit differently. Bowling's involved.
Okay.
Pickleball. We got cornhole, and then basketball.
Okay. And you got to win a qualifier to get there?
Okay. Well, I haven't officially announced it, but I can announce it now. So here's the official announcement. Yeah. You're the first one to hear it.
Yes.
So what's going to happen is we're going to have as many teams that want to can sign up, and it's going to be a lot less expensive. So it's going to be $25 a person.
Oh,
so $100 a team. And what's going to happen is they do this a lot in pickleball and tennis is they kind of have a self-regulating league of sorts. Okay. So your team signs up, my team signs up. And so we're going to put these teams into pools, and I'm going to try to make it based on geographic location to make it easier. So you and I are in the same pool, our teams are at least. And then we coordinate throughout the month of January. It's like, okay, Chase, we need to play your team in cornhole, pickleball, and basketball. Are you guys free on this Friday? Are you free on this Saturday? Where do you live? Can we meet at this place? And let's go knock out some of these events.
Okay.
And so the teams will play each other. You have the whole month of January to play each other in each of the sports. Bowling, you don't have to. So bowling, you can go bowl with your team by yourselves. If you want to bring other teams, you can. You're going to go bowl, and it's your highest team score for bowling. That's what you'll submit. And then when you go play the teams in pickleball and cornhole are split. So if you and a partner play the other team's two people in pickleball, you two don't play that cornhole event. Your other two guys are playing the cornhole event.
Awesome.
If you go play another team, you can switch and you can play cornhole against another team. But in that specific matchup, you split those two.
Okay.
And so you play in that, and then everyone's submitting their scores. So through the month of January, everybody will play.
Okay.
And then we'll know where everybody's at. We're going to shuffle sports and shuffle pools. And then March, we're going to do the same thing. And then we'll have a list of the top teams that have gone through these qualifiers, right?
Okay.
And so that's how we're going to determine the spring teams in Man Games, is the team that wins this whole qualifier will get automatic entry. They don't have to pay the fee. And then, exactly. And then, so we're going to reserve X number of spots to people who participated in qualifiers. We're always going to have the past champion has an automatic bid, if that makes sense. In this case, it's our team.
Barbarians.
Yeah. And then there will be some spots for some sponsor teams as well. Cool. But for the most part, we're going to expand the number of teams for the next spring Man Games. So it'll be more than 8.
Cool.
So that's
but you won't be able to play everyone. But
right.
You will at some point. But
me personally?
No, just all the having that many teams, right? You're probably not going to play 16 basketball games, right?
Right. We're going to lower
It'll be pools or something.
So we had 8 events at Man Games, this most current one with 8 teams. What will probably happen is we're going to choose 6 that we're going to be able to realistically get through with a higher number of teams. So, yeah. So there's the announcement. Now you know. Now it's out. Man Games website, man-games.com. You can sign up right now. So get your team, throw it together.
Got it.
I mean, $25 for
That's
3 months
nothing.
worth of sports. It's just,
it's nothing.
Yeah.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, you're awesome. Thanks for coming. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for doing
awesome.
this. And then we'll get this out to the public. Hopefully they enjoy it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.